Hello and welcome to Pints and Quarts, a show presented by Craft Beer Nation. Today is August 27th of the year 2015. Tonight we're joined by Bruce Forsley. Bruce is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Shipyard Brewing. He's also cousin to Fred Forsley that co-founded Shipyard more than 20 years ago. He's here to answer all of our questions about their past and future brewing. So let's don't waste any more time getting started. Pour that beer into a glass and get comfortable. Oh, and now is a good time to support what we're doing here at Craft Beer Nation by taking a few seconds to click subscribe on our YouTube, Stitcher, or iTunes channels. All right, and we are back, and we are here with Bruce Forsley. Before we get to Bruce, we've also got some regular folks on the show tonight. We've got Randy Gardner Jr., Lola Laracy, Gil Mello, myself, Matt Miller. Hello, everybody, and good evening. Bruce, how are you?
Terrific, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for cutting some time out of your schedule to hang out with us. It's you're on the East Coast as well, so it's 9:30. So everybody does these interviews from home if you're on the East Coast. So thanks for taking time away from your evening to sit in the den and talk to us. Tell us a little bit about the beginnings. I said in the intro here that Fred and another guy whose name escapes me founded this 20 years ago. So how did the wheels get rolling on this project 20 years back?
Well, we started as a brew pub in Kennebunkport, Maine, a little fishing village known primarily because the Bush family has their huge compound not too far from our pub. And a typical Budweiser blue-collar bar that Fred decided to convert into a brew pub, and he was recommended at the time to hire Alan Pugsley to come in, design the brewery, and formulate the first few recipes. Are you gentlemen familiar with the name Alan Pugsley?
I've seen on your bottles. Yeah, I've seen I drunk some of your beers that has the Signature series that has that name on it. So I figured it was maybe a brewery or something.
Well, he's from England, and he started his brewing career in the mid-'80s at the height of the organization of CAMRA, the Campaign for Real Ale. And he apprenticed under legendary British brewer Peter Austin and really led the movement in England to bring back cask-conditioned beer. The brewing consulting firm grew quite rapidly, and they began building breweries around the world. And Alan can lay claim to building breweries in Siberia, Nigeria, China, many in Canada, and many here in North America, which many of your viewers will be familiar with. So when we hired him, it became pretty clear to us that the best thing to do was to make him a partner so he wouldn't continue to go building more competition like Magic Hat, for example. So Alan can be kind of viewed as the Johnny Appleseed of brewing in North America. In fact, I think Jim Cook actually called him one of the 4 most influential brewers in the world.
Wow.
So Alan has quite a pedigree.
Awesome.
Yep. So that's going back.
What's his current role then?
He's retired.
Oh, well, that's the best role.
Yeah. So, in all honesty, Alan preferred the brew pub environment, and as Shipyard grew to really a large production facility, I think he really was more comfortable going back to what he loved doing, which was building small breweries and brew pubs, getting right there in the trenches, making the beer, formulating the recipes, working with the publican or the owners, it may be called, and really getting back to his roots. So Shipyard today, of course, is the master brewer is really scheduling, production, ordering, buying raw materials, budgeting. It's not really in the trenches making beer like it may have been in the old days.
Right. Right. So you've got 2 cousins that are running the ship here. And I think in the intro you said your wife has a role there as well. How far down the family tree does Shipyard go?
Well, really, it's just me and my cousin. My wife is not involved in the brewery, though she loves beer. I mentioned that my cousin Fred's wife was basically our overseer, our treasurer, right? Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, we're family business. It's really just the 2 of us. Will our kids work in the business one day? Perhaps. My son is only 12 years old. In fact, he asked me tonight if he could try his first sip of beer.
Yeah, what did you say?
I said, no, not yet.
You're tall enough to pull tap handles. Get out there and serve.
Here I'm talking to a panel of beer experts. What do you deem as the appropriate age for your first sip of beer?
18.
Yeah, I would say later teens for sure.
Wait, first sip? Not first beer, but just first sip?
First sip.
Oh. Yeah, our wives aren't going to watch, Randy. Go ahead.
I'm going to say there is a set such thing as international, and I was very fortunate because when I was 15, I got to go on a school trip to France, and I got my first alcohol over the Atlantic Ocean, so I stayed 15.
You know, honestly, I hated beer when I was a teenager, so I'm not in any hurry to introduce it to my children.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with that as well. I don't think my son's palate is able to appreciate the many flavors that come along with beer. So I think it's best to wait until I think he can appreciate it, so he can share the same love that I have.
Yeah, I agree.
I think in some respects you're probably right, particularly with the IPA range that you're drinking. But my son was able to smell our current beer of the season.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that one.
Yeah, and it's a light wheat ale, and it's got cinnamon and nutmeg, and of course a little bit of pumpkin. And I don't know if you can see this with the camera. If I can get it. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, I saw that on your website.
This is a little tin of cinnamon sugar that you would wet the rim of your glass, stick it in here, and enjoy the beer with a cinnamon sugar rim on the glass. It really enhances the experience. I think a lot of kids would like that.
Yeah.
Which is the danger of letting him try it, right?
Well, and it's not intentional, of course. But when my son was smelling it, he gets all the cinnamon and the sugar and the nuances of the beer, and it does smell pretty good.
So you can't have any of the beer, but you can taste some of this rimmer.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Shake some on toast with,
So going back a little bit, our infancy, the first beer we created was called Shipyard Export Ale, and I think today that's a little confusing to some people, but back before Prohibition, every brewery had an export ale, typically a little bit stronger in alcoholic strength to survive the trip to wherever it was going. The reason why we created an export ale is because people in the United States are very familiar with beers coming out of Canada called export, hence Molson Export, Labatt's had an export. The nearest ocean to Montreal and Quebec City is the Maine coastline, and so many of our tourists in the summer come from Canada. So our first beer was created to appeal to the Canadian tourist. So our flagship brand in the state of Maine is Shipyard Export. Unfortunately, sometimes we have a tough time conveying that message as we get further and further away from home. But anyway, that's the flagship in the infancy. Today, as you're talking about, I don't know if my children would like the flavor of beer. As you guys know better than I do, probably, the breadth and scope of beer is so wide now. We make blueberry, apricot, raspberry, gingerbread, pumpkin, and the list goes on and on, flavored beers. So, I never thought we'd be... Go ahead, Matthew.
I was thinking maybe, you probably don't want to start someone out, no matter what age they are, with like a Brett brewed Saison, right? I mean, don't give them a big horse blanket to find out that they don't like beer. So
I always thought that the Monkey Feast was because that's the beer I see most on the shelves. I don't remember seeing your other, your export.
The export.
Yep. Well, Gil, that's a good observation. Like I said, as we get further from Maine, export seems to lose its relevance, or the consumer doesn't understand what it means. And yes, our #1 selling beer from Shipyard year-round is the Monkey Fist IPA. Would any of you care to take a guess as to what a Monkey Fist is?
No, I think we could get in a lot of trouble.
I'm thinking like a monkey is a very strong animal, and you get punched in the face by a monkey, not a good thing. So it's being IPA. I'm just thinking it's on your face.
My monkey is a naval thing too, where it holds the cannonballs on an old ship, and old wooden ships. But I don't know. We're done guessing.
Okay. Well, it is tied to our maritime heritage because Shipyard was founded in the last shipyard in Kennebunkport, Maine, where they were building the 5-masted schooners. But anyway, a monkey fist is a knot. What the ships would do is they would take a lead ball and tie a knot at the end of the rope around the lead ball, and when they came into shore, they could throw the rope in order to tie up. So the monkey fist is actually a knot, and on the label of our Monkey Fist IPA, you can see the knot. The monkey's got it wrapped around his ankles. So you were close there with the cannonballs.
I was just about to say, we normally don't do this, but I have to do this just for Matt.
Well, you know,
Because-
there's the saying, you can freeze the ball. It's cold enough to freeze the balls off a brass monkey. Well, the brass monkey was the, yeah. All right.
Thanks, Randy. You gave Gil ideas too. He had his pirate hat on.
So Bruce, would you? I mean, you just went through all the flavors of the different beers that you guys make. I mean, would you say that that's your identity? You kind of want to make beer that appeals to everybody, not just the IPA drinker or the pale ale drinker or whatever. You kind of want everybody to have a little something. Is that your identity?
Our mission is to make balanced beer, a beer such that after you've had the first one, you definitely want a second one. So we don't make beers with extremely hoppy or extremely alcoholic or even extremely malty. And for example, the Monkey Fist IPA, which is our hoppiest probably of our core family, is also got a really sweet malty front to it, so it balances the hop characteristics. So we make balanced beers, and those beers are going to be more appealing to people who are entering the category for the first time, who are transitioning from American domestic beer like Bud Miller Coors. It didn't start out that way. As a matter of fact, when we first started making beer, all my friends told me, "Oh, that beer, it's too strong, it's too dark, it's too heavy, it's too hoppy." Well, today that Shipyard Export is viewed as kind of like a blonde ale, an entry-level beer, and that just goes to show how much the industry's, evolved.
Can you talk about Sea Dog as well a little bit? What's the connection between Sea Dog and Shipyard?
Well, Sea Dog was a brewery that Alan was hired to build, and they went into some financial trouble around 2003, so we bought the brand and a couple of their brew pubs. So we have integrated it into our production. And in fact, Sea Dog Blueberry, which is affectionately called Blue Paw, is the #1 selling beer in that portfolio, and it's also one of our top selling beers in Florida and California, simply because there aren't that many blueberry beers out there. Maine is known for its blueberries. And while there is no real health benefit to drinking blueberry-flavored beer, there are people who believe that there is health benefits to eating blueberries, so maybe there's something there. I don't know.
Beer with antioxidants in it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, let marketing go, right? Let the marketing guys go. So.
But you do, Shipyard has a blueberry also, right? With the Shipyard brand.
We have a stronger beer called Smashed Blueberry.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the one.
Which is a Scotch Ale Porter hybrid, 9% alcohol by volume, layered through with this very soft nuance of blueberry, and it almost brings out some chocolate in the malt as well. And when you drink it, it tastes like a dessert almost. And it's funny because when I go to restaurants, I see lots of desserts with chocolate and strawberries and chocolate and bananas, but I rarely see desserts with chocolate and blueberries, and yet it's a beautiful match.
Mm.
Hang on a second. I want to take a step back there. And did you say a Scotch Ale Porter hybrid? Is the base?
Correct. So it's alcoholic and yet rich at the same time.
Yeah, that's an interesting blend or an interesting hybrid. I can't think of another one of those that I've.
But it sounds like it would work though. I mean, well, obviously it does work if you brew the beer.
Yeah, right.
But it makes sense though, right? I mean.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
The malt itself has this nuance of chocolate. There's no chocolate added to the beer, and somehow the blueberry brings it out of the malt. It's a very interesting beer.
I like those hybrid styles though.
Yeah, I do too. Things that are more creative.
A place right next to us just opened up, and they do a Porter Schwartz beer hybrid, and it works.
And many of these beers that we're brewing, the higher alcohol beers, where as many brewers are, we're aging in our barrel room with bourbon barrels and tequila barrels. And as you're probably fully aware of, the beer goes in at a high alcohol, 8 or 9%, absorbs some of the bourbon, goes through a secondary fermentation, takes 3 to 6 months, and comes out at 12 or 13% by volume. So it becomes like a bottle of wine.
Yeah. And let's talk real quick about your, Shipyard. You guys have kind of really branched out into all markets as well too. You guys have a craft soda line. What's it called? Eli's or?
Yep, Captain Eli's soda. And,
and is that a relatively new addition, or is that something?
No, we've been making root beer from the very beginning. My cousin Fred's dad loved root beer as a little boy, and he had I think an uncle who used to make homemade root beer, and we tried to emulate that recipe. So our root beer is made with brown sugar as opposed to cane sugar or corn syrup, and it adds a really interesting texture to the liquid itself. It gives it more mouthfeel. more viscous, I guess you would call it. And so the root beer is a beautifully rich, full style root beer, mixes well with vodka and rum, in case.
Yeah.
In case.
Did you say what your production is? Because you're in so many states. I mean, I think almost every single state, if I'm not wrong.
We're in most states, but I use the term often a mile wide and inch deep. We do have pockets of real concentration in the Northeast, New York, New Jersey, California, Florida, but we're in many states, the Midwest, far west, where we're there, but it's relatively modest. But yeah, I mean, our goal is to be a national brand, and I guess to be a national brand, you have to be in every state,
all the states,
or most states.
What was your barrel production from the main brew house last year?
160,000 barrels, which is about, I think, 2.2 million cases, and then another 20,000 barrels of soda. And we also have a wine division. We import and broker wines and represent wineries in the Northeast. And we have a bunch of pubs. So we're in the hospitality industry.
And you do bombers, you do cans as well. You use almost every vessel for your beers, right? So you have a line, quite a wide line there.
Excuse me. Cheers.
Cheers. 160,000 barrels is no small number.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we feel very proud of what we've accomplished. We're 20 plus years old. But it's funny, in our own market, where there's 62 breweries for 1.2 million people, we have a lot of formerly good accounts and new restaurants opening that don't want to carry Shipyard because Shipyard's too big, everybody has it. We never thought we would get to that place.
You're the Sam Adams of Maine, huh?
Yeah, but it just never occurred to us we would ever end in this place. I mean, back in 1993 when I'm delivering beer in the back of a Ford Escort station wagon, and when we get to the distributor, I realized that half of the labels were upside down because the two guys that got to do it for me were drinking as much beer as they were labeling. And it's like, in fact, after that episode, they passed a rule that there's no drinking allowed actually in the brew house, which I think is kind of counterintuitive, but whatever.
Yeah, right.
So when I delivered the beer to our distributor, my big order of 50 cases, he was prepared to refuse it, and I said, well, if you refuse it, you won't get any more for another 2 months. So take it or leave it. So that's, I mean, I'm sure many breweries have that. What's that?
Collector's items.
That's
the collector's items, like the upside down postal stamps and stuff, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That was
People think you
'93.
did it on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah. Ford Escort delivery van.
The advantage we had, obviously, was there was far less competition. The hard part was we would go to, at the time, Budweiser, Miller, and Coors kegs were $50. Our kegs were $100. This is in 1993.
Yeah.
And bar owners would say, you're going to sell me a keg of beer for $100. Yep. And you don't have any signage. Nope. And no pint glasses and no TV advertising and no T-shirts. Nope, none of that stuff. And you expect someone to buy this beer for $3 or $4 a pint. Yep. Well, here we are today.
There you go.
They liked it.
Thank God for hipsters.
Yeah.
And connoisseurs.
Oh, there was the quality side, which the competition not always have.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So when I graduated from college, there were 79 breweries in America. Today, there are over 4,000. So we collectively have lived through the real renaissance of beer in America. And it's really been an exciting time.
Yeah.
We're all playing a part in it.
There's a question for you. Here comes the most hard-hitting question: is where are we in 5 years? Are we at 10,000 breweries, or is there a correction coming?
We keep thinking there's a correction coming, and there's been 2 in my lifetime before this one we think is coming. I started my career in wine, and this very similar evolution occurred in the wine industry. It was dominated by Parmesan, Almaden, and Gallo. And in the 80s, there was an explosion of interest in fine wine. Boutique wineries sprung up everywhere, and distributors became overwhelmed. Retailers had no more space, and most of these smaller wineries survive today by selling product to clubs and to people coming to the wineries for tastings. And that's precisely what's happening with many small breweries. You come into their tasting room or their small brew pub, and you purchase the beer and growlers, and that's really the extent of their their distribution, and that's really where we're headed. There'll be breweries in every town. Won't be a bad thing.
No, you'll have your own local brew that only you know about. So.
Yeah, you go down, you get a growler, you take it home at night. There'll be a food truck out front. You might grab a taco or burrito while you're there. Meanwhile, breweries like us will always be trying to supply the grocery store chains and the larger retailers, and
that's always been the same thing that I've said too. Not everybody has aspirations to be a national brewer or have huge regional distribution. I mean, some people are cool just being a local brew pub or a local tasting room, and that model. I mean, I think it's pretty much proven now that model can work, and it's been working for a lot of folks. So, the market is not getting saturated. I mean, and for that very same reason, I think that there's still room for growth.
I agree with you, Randy. And as you see the decline of the large U.S. breweries, they're feeding this tremendous growth in our industry. And I agree with you. I don't think it's going to go backwards. But you bring up a very good point. I mean, we've asked this question of ourselves many times. Why don't we just say enough is enough and focus on where we're successful and leave it at that? I don't know. It's not like we're going to sell this company and get rich. I hope to leave it to my children, and for everyone to leave it to his children. So we're not in it for the money. It's become a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
We had offers from people, and we both said to each other, well, what else would we do? This is what we do. We sell beer.
Yeah.
And sometimes we drink some beer.
And that ain't a bad thing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
which is an honorable thing, because a lot of companies are out there saying, well, I make beer, but I can also get a suntan on a boat. As a career path as well, which is where I'd be if I sold Shipyard Brewing and I was one of the top 2 or 3 guys. So, cheers to keeping on.
Thank you. I think about the young guys who are starting, or young women that are starting. They're 25, 6, 7. They're probably working 70, 80, 90 hours a week. It's a passion. They're not making enough money really. The next thing you know, they get married and they have kids, and the wife's like, what are we doing? We can't live on $25,000 a year forever. And that's the hard part. We didn't pull any money out of our brewery for 15 or 16 years. Everything was always going back in, hiring new employees, buying new vats, getting new trucks, expanding operations, getting computer training, health insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So it takes patience.
So, Bruce, real quick, before we move on, can we talk about one of your beers in particular? We already spoke about Monkey Fist, but let's talk a little bit about Pumpkinhead. Is that hands down your biggest seasonal beer?
Absolutely. Pumpkinhead represents 44% of our total sales, which is extraordinary.
Holy cow.
And it's really kind of problematic for us, because we have to buy all the raw materials in February, March, and April when our cash flow is really bad, because we don't sell as much beer in the winter as we'd like. And then we have to make all the beer in May, June, and July, which is pretty much the height of the tourist season in Maine, and we're very, very busy giving tours, selling beer, and we're at absolutely 100% capacity. And then we sell it all for 3 months, and we start the cycle all over again. But we're very, very, very fortunate. It's our largest production item. It's also a profitable item for us to make, so thankful for that as well. Mm-hmm. And I think, I could be wrong, it is the largest selling pumpkin beer, so we're very proud of that. And the interesting thing about the pumpkin...
Go ahead, Bruce.
Go ahead, Matthew.
I was just going to say,
one other thing about the pumpkin beets.
Sorry. One of us. I'm going to stand back. You talk, Bruce. You're the guest.
I'll just say one more thing, and then I'll leave it to you. Aside from putting a cinnamon sugar on the rim of the glass to enhance the experience, a lot of people and bar owners are pouring various shots of spirits into the Pumpkinhead beer and making beer cocktails out of them, whether it's our friends at Blue Chair Rum or coconut whipped cream vodka from Pinnacle, or Captain Morgan Spice Rum. Really just a shot into the glass, fill up the beer, there you go.
Pumpkinhead pairs well with spirits, just in case.
Spooky spirit.
Just in case you need 11% or 12% to get you there.
I tried to find your melon head, but I couldn't find anybody to send me one. Is that a beer that you do a specific time of the year?
We're trying to have a 4-season rotation of beers under the quote-unquote head series, for lack of a better word. And then
Gonna get into
Gingerbread.
trouble at some point. Yeah.
Well, it started with Pumpkinhead, which is kind of a playoff of the Headless Horseman, of course.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
actually, the image of the label comes from a statue outside of Congress in Washington, D.C., with 3 Civil War generals on horseback. That's where the actual body comes from. But with the great success of Pumpkinhead, we tried to follow it up and, don't reinvent the wheel. So we tried to, we've come up with an Applehead beer. In last winter, Gingerbread Head, which was a spicy beer with molasses, brown sugar, ginger, and cinnamon. And the Melon Head in the summer, of course, light, refreshing, somewhat similar to Jolly Rancher, but not that sweet. And then we're coming up with an orange-flavored beer this January. Blood Orange.
Yeah. What's that one called?
We're struggling with the name. Originally it was going to be Orange Head, but we've gone in a completely different direction. We're going to use Belgian yeast, coriander, blood orange, and it's going to be an unfiltered wheat ale. So we're thinking in order to convey that message, we may have to name it something else, and I'm open to suggestion.
Well, blood orange and the head. You could, some kind of zombie bloody head. I don't know.
I was thinking bloody head, but then that might not sell too well.
Walking Dead Head.
Yeah,
there you go. There you go.
Placement there. I wanted to touch back real quick. When Bruce and I were having trouble stepping on each other, did you say 40% of your annual sales is Pumpkinhead?
44%, Matt. 44%.
Almost half. I can do math.
I mean, so you actually have a seasonal beer that outsells your year-round?
That's correct. Yep.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Let that sink in for a second. That is awesome. I mean, I guess you're good at what you're known.
I read the other day that the top 50 breweries, more than half of them, between starting July to September, pumpkin beers are 10% or more of their production.
Wow.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. The numbers are staggering there.
The prime beer season has become the fall, it seems. And I've been reading that the #1 drinking holiday in America was traditionally New Year's Eve.
Right.
Followed closely by St. Patrick's Day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But everything I read is pointing towards Halloween is soon going to be, or maybe, the biggest drinking holiday in America.
Well, it always is for me. That's my birthday. So.
That's my birthday too. So.
Yeah,
it's not my birthday if I'm not drinking.
Very fitting.
You were both born on Halloween?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Several years apart, though.
and Gil and I are both in October earlier, so that's what we should do. We should get together in October, guys.
October.
That would make sense. Have a birthday meetup.
Yeah. Randy's just a kid though, compared to Gil and I. He's still a youngster.
Hey, I'm over 21. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. Exactly.
So we have another fall beer coming out this year, September 1st, called Little Horror of Hops. Portland Beer Week in Portland, Maine last year did a theme that they asked all the local breweries to come up with a new beer for the week and have it named after a Bill Murray film.
Oh.
So one of our brewers, not anybody in marketing, one of our brewers suggested Little Hop of Horrors after the film Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah.
And so we proceeded to bring that out and draft it. Great, people loved it, and we said, we got to put this in a package. One of the young ladies who works in our retail store and does tours, she's also a graphic artist. She did a beautiful ghoulish image of like Venus flytraps that have turned into like Venus fly hops. And they're salivating blood, and their teeth are hanging down. And in this packaging, which is perfectly ghoulish for Halloween in the fall, we have presented a rye IPA, spicy up front, but hoppy and dry in the finish. And that beer is coming out for the first time here in the next couple of weeks, and very excited about that.
Now, what's the distribution footprint of that?
We're trying to deliver it with everybody who's buying pumpkin, and we're encouraging them to believe that this is not going to cannibalize our great pumpkin market. It's a very, very different beer, but it can be on the display or on the shelf next to pumpkin, and they can complement each other because they're both very, very thematically correct for this time of year.
Right.
Different styles of beer.
And here's the crazy thing. I buy more than one beer when I go to Total Wine.
Yeah.
You can
More than
Yeah.
Sometimes I buy 15.
So that beer is 60 IBUs, 5.9% with Bravo, Apollo, Centennial, and Cascade hops.
on game.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
really.
Did you mean
Yeah.
to do ABC with that? You said Bravo, Apollo.
Yeah, that's that one completely went right over this bald head.
Yeah, right. I missed it too.
Never mind.
But by the way, when I started in the beer business, I had a full head of hair.
Oh,
A lot of late nights.
Yeah. When I started this show, I was 170 pounds. So.
Well, it is beer.
All right. Well, let's move on to a news article here. Randy, let's talk to us about. I mean, Randy and Gil and I went to when we're on site at Savor this past year. Bruce, have you been to Savor in DC before?
I have not, but I've heard wonderful things.
It is fantastic. You guys need to get there and put your beer on there as well too. But the menu is as impressive as the beer selection. And Randy found an article here about how the menu gets put together.
Yeah, this article came from craftbeer.com, and as we know, Savor is all about not just beer, but like Matt said, it's about food and how food and beer pair together. And so they have 76 small independent craft brewers pouring, right? And the people that pour there actually go through a lottery selection process to be able to pour their beers. So once the 76 breweries are selected, they all send 2 of their beers to the Brewers Association home office over in Boulder, Colorado for a tasting session. So the beer gets there, they divide it into 2 tastings, they invite 15 or so different palates, and they're not looking for people to talk about the beer. They want culinary thoughts. The article says they want flavors, memories, stories, and anything that will help them work toward a final menu. They're not allowed to have cell phones. There's no judging. There's no wrong answers. They want you to write down the first thing that comes to your mind, and they use that as the basis. They want you to note flavors in the beer, not necessarily how you think the beer compares to the style, right? So then they go from that tasting, they go to the planning room where they have 3 chefs, a few cookbooks, music, and some more beer. They go through the tasting sheet and they highlight words and phrases, and usually by 2 o'clock in the morning, they have a 46-item menu for the 152 beers that are going to be poured at Savor. And they start broad. Huh? And they're hammered. And they're hammered. They start broad, fish, meat, vegetarian, and then they kind of go on from there and save the more complex beers for later on in the day when they come back in for a second session, because they gotta come down off of that drunk.
Take a little nap.
Yeah, right.
Take a little nap, and then they start pairing the more complex beers, and so when they're looking at the tasting sheets, oftentimes they kind of just go. They use anything as inspiration. So Matt come and tastes this beer, and this beer reminds him of eating. It reminds him of summertime when he was little, eating corn on the front porch. So they take that into account. It reminds Gil of working in the yard cutting grass. They take that into account. Reminds Lola of being at Grandma's house making cinnamon rolls. They take that into account.
My grandma being totally drunk. No, just kidding.
So,
my grandma.
They take all these things into account, and that's how they develop the menu for Savor, just by having no rules, no limits, going off of the first thing that comes to people's minds and building upon that. And Matt and Gil can attest that we had absolutely 0 bad food items at Savor. Yeah. So this approach is obviously something that works.
When it comes to food, I don't consider myself a foodie, but close to a foodie. And when it comes to it's creativity. You go to a restaurant, you want to have an environment, you want to have the ambience and everything. And I think that's what makes Savory so successful. It's amazing, pairing. So you have beer, which is the passion, why you were there. Then you have this great food and the environment, the place where they do the stuff. That they did in Washington. It was just a perfect Beautiful. Food and drinking environment. So I think that made them very, very successful because of that, and a great job by the BA. I mean,
oh yeah,
really well organized.
Shout out to Julia Hers.
Yeah, to Brewers Association for
Yeah,
putting that thing
Julia.
together. Yeah. I'll tell you, the food at that place, there were a couple of conversations that went like this. I don't know what beer's over there, but they got that Gouda thing with the sliced plum on it, so let's get down with that. So, I don't care what they're pairing with it, but that thing was freaking awesome. At one point,
go ahead, Matt.
No, at one point I stood in line, and this place had little swords that were holding on to a piece of London broil, and so people were standing in line waiting for that. They'd bring these appetizers out like in waves, they'd put a plate down with 15 of these things on it, and as the waiter came out or the servant came out and set the plate down, this one guy reached in and grabbed like 6 or 7 of them with his hand, and he just looked at everybody else in line and went, "Sorry," and turned and walked away. And I thought there was going to be a lynching right there. I thought they were going to take the guy and throw him right out on his ear.
They need to forbid him from coming back.
And so, Bruce, just so you know, like for example, one of the things they had, I think it was Lagunitas pouring, I think it was little something, and they paired it with it was, I can't remember what the dish was, but I remember the main component of the dish was foie gras, and I was like, really? We're at this beer festival and they're pairing foie gras with beer. This is awesome. Bruce, you got to make your way there next year, man.
Now, Randy, does this alternate between New York City and Washington, or is it always in Washington?
It's usually in D.C. They did it in New York, I think 2 years ago.
As a trial, yeah.
Okay, because we passed on the opportunity because we were just short on personnel and getting to the city and stuff, and we weren't really as familiar with it as you just described. But yes, it seems like an absolute must be there if we can get in.
And the facility is it's the absolute perfect venue for this event.
Yeah,
I didn't realize you had to submit your beer to be chosen for the event.
Yeah, but you could, even if your beer isn't chosen, you can always just come as a participant.
Good point.
Yeah, it's a weekend worth it.
And it's important to say for the people listening to this, maybe $130, $150 seems very steep, but by the amount of the food and the gear you get and stuff, I mean, you easily would spend more than that in a restaurant.
And just the experience, the accessibility of everybody that's there. We had Ron Lindenbush from Lagunitas on the air, and he comes over to our camera settings, and he's very cordial and talking to us and jovial. And Randy says, "Oh man, I haven't had any of that beer. I got to go over." He's like, he's got a bottle of beer in his hand, and he's drinking off of it, and he just pours some in Randy's glass. He's like, so I mean, this is, this was just kind of that environment, But there wasn't any pretentiousness. It was in a very swanky place. High-end tickets, but the people were really grounded. So
yeah, absolutely.
Our next article tonight, really probably the last one we're going to get to, is the UVM, the University of Vermont, has got a new professional certificate that they're offering. It looks like the classes are pretty much just online, but it is a craft beer program, a business of craft beer program, and you can get a certification. And they're trying to reach out and give educational opportunities to people entering the craft beer industry. So, not everybody, I guess, can get to Siebold, or get to Weinstefan or anything like that for brewing school. And this is more really, I think, geared toward the business side. But it really goes to show how the craft beer industry is impacting everything, not just what people are drinking and consuming and pairing, but how the business is preparing for the next generation and the continued growth by educating people professionally. So, it wasn't a couple of months ago we had Jeff Calloway on, and he's from the Colorado State University, and they've got a bachelor's program in fermentation sciences. And they've been, really kind of, I think they were just getting started. I don't think they've turned out their first graduate of the program yet, but they got a nice grant from New Belgium, and you can kind of see these universities and colleges are starting to offer these programs. There are kids that want to go to school and be a brewer, so you don't have to fail at everything else to become a brewer. You set out, this is what I want to do, and it's kind of exciting.
And go ahead, Bruce.
I was just going to say, I joke with people. I went to a liberal arts college in Maine, but people say, what did you get your education? And I said, well, I went to vocational school. because we spent more of our time on beer then than just about I do now.
That's preparing you.
But I think that goes to show. I mean, the beer is still picking up steam, so it can't be about to. It can't be about to. The market can't be getting saturated because people are trying to get degrees in this stuff. There's room for growth. The interest is way too high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Couldn't
And
get
you know,
my
I
words out
guess.
just now.
Well, and a bubble's a bubble. It pops when you're not ready for it. But I don't think the bubble is going to be in the craft beer consumption. I think it might be, Bruce was talking about those local. It's going to be a series of local craft breweries that sell their beer out the front door and make a business that way. And I think when the towns get saturated with those, like I said, I live in a town of 15,000 people, and there are 3 little craft breweries here. And I don't think all 3 of them are making the quality of product that's going to let them be in business 5 years from now. Yeah. So, will there be a downsizing there, or will it just be a weeding out of the people that aren't making quality product?
Attrition.
Locally can choice. Yeah, when people can make a choice, I'm only going to get 1 growler on Friday night. So, are the loyalty is going to fade when the quality of beer is vastly different.
Yeah. And Matthew, I just read from the BAA that the number 1 alcoholic beverage of choice for women 21 to 34 is craft beer, surpassing wine in the last 6 months. And that is a segment of the quote-unquote beer category that was substantially missing, and beer is traditionally consumed 80% by men. So you got that whole growth component as well.
But I think it has to do a little bit with attitude. Like, there's a long way that craft beer has to go towards women as well, but I think it had a more predisposed position on how to deal with and respect women when it comes to the beverage, and I think that helped a lot.
You can't ignore the demographic. And speaking of which, Lola, you had a really short one real quick about Queen of Beers.
And this is a perfect segue because maybe Anheuser-Busch needs to check itself before it wrecks itself, because it's online to make a lot of women angry, and also a Randy Gardner Jr. Because what is happening is apparently there is a beer, and the picture looks fabulous. I've never had this beer. I've never heard of it, but the bottle looks fabulous. The name of the beer is She, and the tagline is the Queen of Beer, and it's from She Beverage Company. And they just wanted to make a beer that, highlighted the female ownership, and, that was really unique and had a female perspective. Well, Anheuser-Busch didn't like that because they had the tagline, the King of Beer, and apparently they thought that people would get confused and think they make She the Queen of Beer.
I gotta tell you, man, these guys, talk about another unprovoked, unnecessary thing to do, man. They can't get enough. I'm beginning to think that they do this just for publicity. I mean, I don't think they,
Or their law department is on its own and is just picking stuff to do, one after the other, and nobody's controlling that.
Just seizing it.
Because it's becoming a mockery, and I don't, I know there's a lot of people think bad media is better than no media, but it's harming them quite a lot.
That's like me opening a brewery and calling myself the Duke of Beers or the Lord of Beers, or the whatever, and them suing me because the people might get the Duke of Beers confused with the King of Beers. Man,
maybe
come on,
you are the Duke of Beers. What if you are? What if there's a Beers England and you are the Duke of Beers England? Are they going to sue the nobility of England? I want to see that.
They need to stop.
And also, so what? What if people think they make the Queen of Beer? Well, then that means that people think they make a pretty cool beer. I mean, I've never had the beer, but it looks cool. So that's probably a win in their book, because most people,
It's probably an improvement over the beer they're making.
I would say so. They should be thrilled. They should be like, yeah, that's us. Whatever, have some, yeah.
Do you remember the beer Budvar from the Czech Republic?
Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's been making beer since 1400. And when they entered the United States as an export market, they were sued by Anheuser-Busch, Budweiser, for the same argument that you're articulating. And I would have thought, since they've been making beer under Budvar for 700 years, that this would be a case that would be won in favor of Budvar, but in fact it was not. And they had to change their name to Czechvar.
Czechvar, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I had Czechvar, I was told by the bartender that Czechvar is everything Budweiser wanted to be.
Yeah. I would say so.
But they lost the right to use their name Budvar in America.
You know
That's
what?
how good the lawyers are here.
I'm
know.
sorry, there's
That's what money
karma
can get
there,
you.
though. There's
That's
karma. You go against a 700-year-old company, there's karma there. It's going to come back.
But
Yeah.
imagine they're not only picking a ridiculous fight, but it's an all women-owned brewery. You know, again, is that what we just said before? Is it's hitting that special demographic that it's a big
they
market. It's a
need.
market. Yeah. You know.
It would be their chance to embrace it rather than putting a sexy woman on the cover of something that's only going to turn off most female craft beer drinkers. It was a chance to embrace the market and maybe, do a little good PR. But no, they didn't take it.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to shift gears to the last little segment of the show, and that is we're going to talk about beer releases and festivals that are coming. So we'll talk about the list here first. Revolution Brewing in Chicago's got their Old Country Alt beer. That comes out today, and their Oktoberfest comes out the 9th of September. I have not had Revolution, but I've got a friend in Chicago. Maybe I need to get them to bring some of their stuff back.
I had a beer from Revolution this past weekend, and I can't remember what it was, but it was incredible.
I had it. I had it when I was in Chicago, and it was really, really good. It's the stuff that you take it home on across the
good.
line.
Well, then I need to make an effort then, too. So I was thinking about getting them to bring me back some of that. What's that company that makes Daisy Cutter?
Well, I'll be there next month. I'll bring stuff.
Half Acre.
Half Acre, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be at the Revolution next month. In 2 weeks, I'll bring some stuff.
Well,
Citra
there we
Hero.
go.
Citra
Yeah.
Hero. That's what you want.
Citra Hero?
Citra Hero, yeah.
All right, Gil, you've got your orders now. Dogfish Head's waiting until September to get their pumpkin beer in the market. They've got Pumpkin Ale coming out September 1st. Weyerbacher has their Imperial Pumpkin Ale come out last week. That's another one of my favorites. Ballast Point's got Pumpkin Down released on Monday. And River Rat has got Sour Cherry Sucker Punch American Strong Ale Brew with tart cherries, cranberries, and blackstrap molasses. So there was one non-pumpkin beer.
And that's next week, yeah. I missed that.
Yeah, that's next week. Yeah,
They're not going to be sued for that beer name.
Sour Cherry Sucker Punch.
Yeah.
Well, there's a movie called Sucker Punch,
Yeah.
so they may be.
So apparently the this pumpkin beer thing is well, we know it's big because Bruce says he makes 70,000 barrels a year of it. I mean, whew, that's a big thing. Festival wise, Burning River Fest in Cleveland, Ohio, 28th and 29th. That's tomorrow and tomorrow and Saturday. Breckenridge Beer Festival is on Saturday in Breckenridge, Colorado. Green Beer Fest is also in Boulder on Saturday. Lancaster Beer Fest is on Saturday. Gil, you going to that?
It's a trial. We'll see.
Yeah.
There's a family birthday, so we'll see if we can split into
Take
segments.
them to the beer fest, man. Get them all tickets.
Is it a
Or is
child?
it a child? Is it a kid? It's a 10-year-old.
I was about to say, let's go back to the beginning of that interview.
Hey, man, you're our designated driver. Come
Little
on.
sippy
You can
cups.
reach
It'll
the pedal.
be
Bruce's son is going to be the DD. At 12 years old.
with a bicycle.
Key West has a brew fest next week. That's the 2nd through the 7th. I guess a 5-day party is pretty. I guess there's a 365-day party at Key West. So their brew fest is the 2nd through the 7th. So tell us a little bit about remind us of the releases. What was your
little hop,
beer?
little
hop of horrors.
little horror of hops.
Bingo, Randy, you got it. Little Horror of Hops.
All right.
Rye IPA.
All
Of course,
right.
Pumpkinhead presently, and Smash Pumpkin, our 9% pumpkin ale. And then December 1st, we will have a chocolate milk stout we'll be releasing for the season. And our gingerbread flavored beer called Gingerbread Head. And then in the first of the year, we'll be coming out with a blood orange Belgian-style unfiltered wheat. So we get a lot coming on.
Yet to be named.
Yet to
Orange
be
Definitely not bloody orange head. So
Orange slice.
orange slice,
Orange
yeah, with a
slice might
yeah.
be
There you go,
nice.
Gil. Although I think orange slice is trademarked in that soft drink.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that
Orange
is our
slice.
show for this week. Bruce, we really appreciate you making an effort to come on here with us and drink a few beers with us tonight and talk to us about Shipyard Brewing and all the other kind of components. You guys really are a conglomerate of companies. It isn't just beer you're making. You've got a lot of great things going on up there. So we wish you all the best and a few 100,000 more barrels next year, and we'll have you back on to talk about it then.
Well, Matthew, thank you. Lola, Gil, Randy, I appreciate the time. And maybe you can remotely broadcast this show from Portland, Maine, and you'd be my guest.
Oh,
That'd
that
be
sounds
awesome.
like a party. That's right.
All we need is an invitation.
Ken and Buckport. Well, we could probably stay at the Bush estate, right? The Bush compound.
You can do a drive-by, and they keep you moving.
Yeah, that you probably do keep you moving there. So, all right, guys. Until next week, everybody find some good beer, find some great friends, and let's mind those P's and Q's.